Hey everybody, I've been working on a new commission here. I thought I'd share a little bit of my process. This is going to be a box with a lot of exotic hardwood and pattern wood at that. So right now I'm just kind of sizing, trying to make sure I have enough material here. But what's going to happen is I'm going to have a long piece that goes all the way across and then a bunch of small segments that go in between the long pieces. Now I'm going to cut these segments a bit shorter. I'm going to mix them around so I get nice contrast and variety of woods in each panel, but this is just my process of getting started. So now that I've ensured that I have enough wood, I've sorted all of my segment stock into 4 rough thicknesses, and I'm going to run them through the table saw to ensure that each group has exactly the same thickness, so that when I glue them up in a bond of segments together, they don't interfere with the next row. All right, so I finished the first group. You can see these are now all exactly the same width. So now when I chop these up into random lengths and run them together in a row, they'll make one row with the same width. Quick update here. I chopped up my first set of bricks, for lack of a better term, and you can start to see the concept here. So we're gonna have one long stripe of a random thickness, and then we're gonna have a run of bricks with random types of wood and random widths. So this is going to be kind of the general idea, except each of these rows of bricks is going to be in various heights because I have 4 different categories of height bricks. Here are all of my bricks. You can see I've got wide ones, slightly more narrow, slightly more narrow, and then narrowest bricks. So now between that and all of my long pieces, I should have enough stock to glue up 4 panels for this box. I'm excited to start laying these out and seeing how they're gonna look. Okay, this might need a little bit more thinking, but this was just a quick test to lay out what a panel may look like. You can see I've got some more narrow runs, some wider ones. The overall height of this box is going to be 6 inches, so I'm trying to keep in mind some visual aspects of the box, making sure that the top and the bottom are a full run. But this is looking pretty interesting. Curious what you guys think. Okay, after hours and hours of cutting on the table saw and cutting bricks and planning this out, I think I'm finally ready to start gluing some panels together. You'll see I have an A, a B, a C set of rows that are going to go all the way across these panels. And the reason I decided to group them together is because I want each of the panels to have the same height for each row, so that when they meet at the corners, there will be some type of consistency there. This is going to be an interesting glue up. It's going to be a lot to get glue on these bricks and put them all together, and I will share how it comes together. Okay, here it is, dry fit, laid out, following my pattern. I know it doesn't seem like a ton, but that's 47 pieces that I need to glue and clamp up before the glue starts to dry. So this should be a little bit of an adventure. Wish me luck. All right, that was messy and chaotic, but I think it came together real nice. I can tell that it's sitting real flat, even though I do have an extra 1/8 of an inch to trim this down and get it to its final thickness. This is a good indicator for what's to come here. So I'm progressing nicely here. Hey everybody, I'm back at it with the box. I'm getting ready to cut the miters here. I cheated a little bit off camera and made the lid. This is a walnut inlaid monogram on maple. This is going to be the top of the box. And I've got some additional maple stock that's going to be the bottom of the box. So the next steps here, I'm going to cut the miters, get the box sized properly. I'm going to cut some dados or grooves in the sides of the box for the lid and the base to go in, and glue it up. All right, I've cut the miters, and now I taped it together just to get a general sense of sizing here. Let's see. The lid is going to get notched into the inside, and the base is going to get notched in as well. So that's my next step, is to get my lid and base to final thickness and cut those dados. Okay, I've cut the dados and I got the lid and the base fitting perfectly in there. And now I have it dry fit just to make sure everything is in tolerance here and I don't get to a glue up and have a lid that's too big. So everything looks great. I'm going to do a little bit of sanding and then try to get this glued up. Hey everybody, I'm out with my shopmate Tova here.
I'm sanding.
She's working on her sanding technique, but also some moral support here as I'm starting to tackle the next step in this box, which is splines. And I've come up with a plan so that I know that my top spline is going to be centered on my lid. The middle spline is going to be centered on the finished box in the center, and the bottom spline will match the distance offset from the top one. I had a decision to make in terms of, did I want to have a dark and contrasting spline stock or a variety of woods to kind of match the theme going on here. I decided to go with a variety of woods. I picked out some scraps that are going to make some good spline stock, and we're going to get going on this. Here's the step that always induces a bit of anxiety. I've got the box on my spline jig, which is a sled that runs the box over my table saw at a 45-degree angle. This is to cut the grooves for the splines, and I've done a test cut with a piece of scrap and checked both the distance in from the end as well as the depth of cut, and I'm happy with it. So here we go. All right, I've got plenty of splines to pick from here, and now it's becoming a game of which spline goes where. I'm looking obviously for some contrast between the wood that it's going into and a good spline fit, because they're all off by just a tiny, tiny bit. It is 90 degrees in my shop. I'm going to call it a night. But I did get all the splines glued in, so tomorrow I'll be able to cut those down, start doing some sanding, remove the lid, and start working on the liner on the inside of the box. Making great progress. Back out in the garage, it's only 88 degrees today. I just finished cutting all of the splines down to size here using flush trim saw. So I got my pile of scraps here. These were all the excess material for the splines. So now I'm going to get to sanding. This is going to really clean up the look on the outside of the box here. All right, this is shining up quite nicely. Splines are looking really good in the corners. I have to say I'm very happy with my decision to keep the row height for all of these layers the same so that they meet at the corner here. There's a lot of chaos in this pattern, but it's kind of nice to see a little bit of order in the corner. So the next step is to cut the lid off. So yet another nerve-wracking step where I'm going to be taking the box to the table saw, but I've done this enough times now where I've got a strategy to keep this in check. So one of the reasons that I cut a little bit of extra spline stock is so that when I go to cut the lid, every pass I'll tape in a piece of that stock that's the same thickness as the width of the blade. That way when I make that final cut, the top doesn't just fall off or want to move around. This tape and the stock helps brace the lid for that final cut. And now after removing the tape, I've got a lid. I love that the lid has the kind of coursing of bricks around it, and the top of the box has a solid course, and they come together just right. That was intentional. So now I gotta make a liner for the inside, and that liner is gonna come just proud of the top of this box so that it registers the lid when you go to put it on. Another balmy night in the shop, a mere 86 degrees. I didn't give many updates as I was working on this because it's tedious, boring work. Cutting these liners, getting them down to the right thickness, but then creeping up on these miters to get them just right. They're a very tight, snug fit right now that you really have to kind of tap into place. So a little bit of finishing work to do. I'm going to bring these down a little bit lower so the lid slides in a bit easier. do some sanding on the inside because that's certainly a lot easier to do before we glue it up. And then it's just fit and finish. Some sanding, finishing. This is going to look really interesting once it has some finish on it. All right, I've been working hard at this box. It almost looks like I never took the lid off, but it's a nice piston fit. See, I've got the liner all in there. Beautiful. Everything's nice and smooth to 220 grit. I'm getting ready to put some finish on this guy and see how everything comes out. All right, I got my favorite finish for boxes. It's Walrus Oil Furniture Butter. It's in oil and hard wax finish. And boy, does it make these woods pop. Now this goes on a little bit thick. Right now I put a handsome coat on, and then tomorrow I'm going to buff out all the excess oil and wax.